Hello and welcome to Newsmakers for this Wednesday, September 18th. I'm Louie Butko, and on today's show, I'm very pleased to be joined by longtime radio host and music journalist Alan Cross. Alan, thanks so much for making the time. I really want to jump right at you because, here you are on this podcast in 2024. It was 1993 you started the ongoing history of new music. Do you feel like, you may have pioneered the podcasting industry?
No, because I wanted to do a podcast as early as 2006 or 2007 when it was first starting out. The whole technology was beginning. It took me until 2017 to convince my masters that, yes, podcasting is a thing and we should be doing it. But since then, it's been all about podcasting and it seems to be doing well.
You got a new one, a brand new podcast, Uncharted. Tell us a little bit about this one.
Uncharted is the intersection of music and true crime. Now, the music business is filled with all kinds of weird criminals and all kinds of bad behavior, and this podcast explores those relationships. Let's put it that way.
All right, well, we'll have to check it out wherever we find our favorite podcast. I'm sure we can find that one. We brought you on here because you've been working for the last few years on The Spirit of Radio as a documentary. Tell us a little bit about how that has been going.
Well, there was a period of time between 1977 and 1992 when CFNY was a very, very influential radio station, not only in Ontario, but Western New York, all of Canada, all of North America, in fact, around the world, because we were able to break bands from places like the UK that nobody else could. So that was when the radio station was using the slogan, The Spirit of Radio. And yes, Rush did write a song about us. So a bunch of us were sitting around one day and decided that, we should be able to we should tell this story. Other radio stations have done documentaries as well, but there's never been one on us. So one thing led to another, and we began work in late 2023, I think, or 22. And we've finished it all up, and we're just waiting for an opportunity to properly premiere it.
Now, you mentioned kind of the CFNY. Everybody's got their own sort of telling. My generation, it was I listened to Dean Blundell in the mornings on the Edge type thing. Really, anybody in the GTHA has a story where they can tell you about CFNY. What made it so unique to be able to carve out the slice it did in a pretty crowded, GTHA radio market? What made the Edge? What made CFNY special in that sense?
Well, it was a lot less crowded back in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. We had fewer entertainment options. I mean, maybe if you had cable, you had 20 or 25 channels to choose from. There was no internet. There was no social media. There was no email. There was nothing along those lines. So radio for a lot of people was social media. It was where we got our news and information and entertainment in real time. And a number of things conspired to make CFNY in those days unique, in the sense that there were so many other radio stations playing so much other, the same music. And in 1978, it was just decided that, we're not going to be able to compete with these big boys with their deeper pockets and better studios and more powerful transmitters. So we'll try playing this music that nobody else is playing. And it turned out that we were in the right place at the right time, and the station took off.
Now, when did you start at CFNY? Take us a little bit about through your history. When did you realize that there's something special here?
I first heard about the radio station when I bought a Rush record in 1980, and that was the Permanent Waves record. Side one, track one is The Spirit of Radio, and at the bottom of the lyric sheet is a little note to this radio station living in Brampton. I was still in high school at the time, and I thought that, maybe I'll get into radio when I get out of school. And look at this, my favorite band just wrote a song about a radio station. Boy, wouldn't it be cool to work there one day. So that was January 1980, and in October 1986, I walked in the door and really haven't left since.
That's awesome. Now, Geddy Lee did appear in the doc, but the station didn't play Rush for a bit there. It focused on a bit new wave. What is it about the evolution of music and rock and the way it sounds and how the Edge and how CFNY has had to sort of adjust as well.
Well, this is radio. Individual radio stations will adjust their formats, will adjust their music playlists based on what music is available and what the audience seems to like. And for the longest time, there was crossover between us and other rock stations, but not much. We kind of reveled in our underdogness, our outlierness for a very long time. And as a result, there was a bifurcation of a lot of the rock music that was coming out. And a group like Rush would have been, they would have been claimed by Y95 in Hamilton or Q107 in Toronto or any other rock station. We did play some Rush every once in a while, but that was not our thing based on all the other music that we were playing. It's just the nature of the business.
Yeah. You think like an Oasis, all their recent announcement there, they were a big part of the 90s of the development. Not every station has the legacy of a CFNY. What makes it still relevant today?
I think because we were in the right place at the right time and we affected people in such a deep emotional level and at that point in their lives. We were the only people doing this. We were the only people playing this kind of music that was, there's a certain psychographic that gravitated towards alternative music. And if you could supply a steady stream of it, that really endeared the radio station to a lot of people. The thing about music is that we use it to figure out who we are. Music is something that reaches deep inside of us. It helps us understand our own emotions and our own feelings. Once it does that, we then use that same music to project our identity to the rest of the world. So when you're dealing with the alternative mindset, which is already, I'm a weirdo, I'm an outsider, I'm different, I don't fit, I'm different. We played into that. We reveled in that. We celebrated that. And I think that ended up helping to program a lot of people in a positive way for the rest of their lives.
Terrestrial radio, we know, I started my career in terrestrial radio out at Hits FM in St. Catharines and CKTB. And we've seen the changing marketplace of terrestrial radio, including here in Hamilton with the recent closure of CHML. Does terrestrial radio have a place in the future of medium if we keep seeing this decline?
Well, it does. Now, what people are focusing on are AM and FM deliveries. AM and FM transmitters. Radio is extremely good at creating audio. Radio is extremely good at reporting on things, whether it be news or entertainment, in real time. It's the delivery mechanism that is going to change. For the longest time, radio has been just a one-way medium with, you turn it on, you either accept what comes out of the speakers or you don't. But we're getting more and more into the digital age where it's a two-way communication, where it's more about customization for the end user rather than broadcasting from one source to many. Now, that will always have its place in the broadcasting ecosystem, but the one-to-one thing is also very important, which is why websites and podcasts and video and all these other things are very important. At some point, we will stop using old school analog technology like AM and FM. Not for a while yet, but that is something that's going to end. And we will simply use other over-the-air transmission technologies to get the audio from point A to point B, and this is important, from point B back to point A. So it could be, 5G or 6G technologies. There's something called ATSC that people are looking at. There's a few other things. So yeah, radio is going to go through a transition period, but it's the cockroach of all broadcast media. I mean, it's been around since the early 1920s. It wasn't killed by movies. It wasn't killed by TV, and certainly wasn't killed by the video star. So it's still here, and it's going to survive, but it is going to, like many other things, change, and that's fine.
So what makes you encouraged about the future of that medium in particular? Because, like I said, having worked at a company that saw a takeover, I went from that Astro company to Bell Media. I've seen these acquisitions happen in real time. I've been a victim of these acquisitions at times as well. So, I can sometimes be a little bit cynical about the future of radio. What gives you encouragement? Why are you encouraged that it could still be a thing?
Because it's too big to fail. And it's what we're seeing here in North America is slightly different from what we're experiencing in places like the UK, Europe, Australia, and other parts of the world where radio is pretty much AM/FM radio continues to be rather healthy. Although in certain places like Switzerland and France and Norway, they are switching away from AM and FM to something called DAB. Now, we're not going to see DAB in North America because the Americans rejected that technology about 25 years ago. But the idea of being able to broadcast, to reach, to communicate with a vast audience, in real time, simultaneously is a powerful thing. Why would you ever give that up? Again, it's all about the delivery mechanism. And at some point, we will move away from AM and FM into this new era, this new realm, whatever it may be. And there will be some bumps along the way. There always is in terms of technological change and transition, but it will continue to survive because it is too important, too powerful, too, in many cases, too profitable and too popular to go away. So I saw something the other day. Somebody said, somebody should do a podcast that broadcasts in real time when something important is happening. Well, duh, that's called radio. So we'll ride it out, and it will be just fine.
Well put. And if anyone's saying we'll be just fine, you, Alan Cross, saying it makes me feel a little bit better about radio. Let's get back to the documentary, The Spirit of Radio. You mentioned you're looking for developers. This was a passion project, to put it lightly. Tell us about your experience and what, even you, who's someone who's been ingrained in that building for as long as you have at that station, what were your big takeaways from putting this film together?
The lasting impact of what happened during that period from 77, 78 through to 92. Now, we cut it off at 92 because at that point, the radio station went through some new ownership changes, and we morphed from being called CFNY to The Edge. So that was a natural end for the story that we wanted to tell. And in that period, there were ownership changes, there was receiverships, there was bankruptcies, there were all kinds of internal weirdness, but there was all kinds of fantastic music being made, being distributed, and being broadcast. And it again, when you're in the middle of it all, you don't realize exactly how important you are at that moment, or how important you will be at that moment to somebody who is listening to what you're doing. And I guess my biggest takeaway was, wow, this mattered. People took this seriously. People remember what we did. We affected some lives in a positive sort of way. We had no idea, because with radio, you sit in a room and talk to yourself. But with the advantage of time and space and history, you begin to see that sitting in that room, talking to yourself, made a difference, and a good one, too.
We had Rick Campanelli in here a few months ago talking about the Much Music documentary that recently had its sort of cross-country tour. They ran into some issues with licensing. Did you find yourself running into similar issues like that? Lots of music, lots of things to clear. I can imagine logistically it might have been at times maybe a bit of a headache.
Oddly, no, because one of our executive producers is a professional music clearer. So the one thing the only thing that was frustrating, and of course this happens to everybody who's making a film, is that some people ask an awful lot of movie to have their music licensed, and we only had a finite amount of money to devote to music licensing after all the other things that went into the documentary. So there were some songs that we would have really loved to have, but they were just too expensive on the open market, so we couldn't do it. But everything that is in the film has been 100% licensed inside and out internationally. So no, we got that covered.
There you go. That's awesome. So we're going to be following you to make sure. Where should people keep their eyes open? Who are waiting for this movie? Where should people kind of be tuned into?
Oh, I think what you should do, follow my website, a journalofmusicalthings.com. I give updates periodically when there's something to talk about.
Awesome. Speaking of that website, I have it open right here. And just today, you wrote, this Miley Cyrus copyright infringement suit is ... Wow. Let's talk about this Miley Cyrus Flowers song. Music licensing company is saying, hey, we own a part of that song. They're going after just about everybody. What do you make of this story? It's pretty outstanding.
These are common, these kinds of lawsuits. In this particular case, it's a company called Tempo. Tempo has been buying up music catalogs from established artists. And in this particular case, they have a fraction, I don't know how big, but they have a fraction of a Bruno Mars song called When I Was Your Man. And they contend that the Miley Cyrus song infringes artistically, structurally, and musically on the song of which they own a piece of. So what's usually, what's interesting is that you usually see when there's and these lawsuits, these actions happen all the time. What you usually see is the aggrieved party going to the publisher or whoever owns the rights to the song saying, hey, we kind of noticed something, maybe we should do something about this. Or they may decide immediately to go to court, in which case it's a trial by jury. And it's usually, again, between the rights holders, and that tends to be the composers or the publishers. In this particular case, Tempo Music has decided to sue everybody. They have sued Miley Cyrus. They've sued the co-writers of the song. They have sued the record label. They have sued several publishers. They have sued some
companies who use the ad. Yeah.
They've sued Disney for daring to put the song in a documentary. They've sued Live Nation, who helped Miley Cyrus sell some of her songs online, and they have sued a ton of the streaming music services. Now, if you're a streaming music service, you don't look at the provenance of a song that somebody uploads. If it's coming from Sony Music Entertainment and it's coming from Miley Cyrus, well, okay, that's great. That's going to be a big hit song. So we're going to stream it because our customers want it. So all these streaming music services have been sued for daring to play this song. Now, what's wild is that the list of streaming music services being sued does not include Spotify, nor does it include YouTube. There's over 2 billion streams of it on Spotify and approaching 1 billion views of the video on YouTube, and they're not part of the suit. It's very, very weird. And once again, this is going to go to court, and all these musicologists are going to be trotted out. And the way you look at things, you don't sit there and listen, go, oh yeah, that one sounds like that song, so therefore you're guilty. No, you have to actually tear it apart and look at the sheet music, look at it on the page, and then bring in a musicologist to point out similarities and differences. And then the jury will decide, well, yes, this song is sufficiently similar to or different from for us to be able to render a verdict.
And, there's been some very high-profile examples of that happening. Ed Sheeran, of course, I think very recently had his he had to play his guitar in court in front of people. And then, of course, the Robin Thicke song there, too, Blurred Lines. That one, of course, got a lot of profile. While I got you here, again, news of the day. Great to have you here. J.D. Souther passing away. Obviously a huge co-writer for some big Eagles hits, but obviously an influential musician of a different era than Miley Cyrus.
Yeah, he was part of that whole California sound that sort of started in the late 1960s and really peaked in the mid 1970s. He was Glenn Frey's roommate for a while. He was a co-writer on a bunch of Eagles songs. He wrote a bunch of Eagles songs. He did, let me see, he did Best of My Love. He did New Kid in Town. He did Heartache Tonight with a bunch of other people. So, he made a lot of money for the Eagles. The Eagles have the biggest selling greatest hits album of all time. And a lot of songs on that album are J.D. Souther songs. So the man did extraordinarily well. He also wrote songs for Linda Ronstadt. She had a couple of big albums, Hard Like a Wheel and Living in the USA. And then who else did he write for? James Taylor. And then he had his own solo career. So J.D. Souther did extraordinarily well for a very long time. And it's sad to see him go at the age of 78.
You're Only Lonely, his top 10 hit there in 1979. You're Only Lonely. Alan, really appreciate you making the time. I know you're a very busy man. You got lots of things on the go. So appreciate a few minutes of your time this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Awesome. My thanks to Alan Cross for joining me on today's show. And my thanks to you as well, because we could not do the show without your support. And while you're supporting us, maybe tell a friend to listen to the show. That'd be a great way to support us. And you can do that by telling them to look up Newsmakers wherever they find their favorite podcasts. Or you can go to chch.com/podcasts to find a direct link to today's show. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, just scan that QR code. It'll bring you right to us. My thanks to Mike Corsten for directing today's show. And one more time, thank you for listening. From all of us here at CHCH, I'm Louie Butko. Have a great day.